Here's the cue card. Describe a job you think would be interesting to do. And here's what most candidates think. Oh no, what job do I pick? I need to know a lot about it. What if the examiner asks me something I don't know? Here's what an examiner actually thinks. Does this person use language well? Can they maintain fluency and develop ideas clearly? That's it. The examiner is not checking your career knowledge. They are not your HR department. So today, we're going to show you exactly how to talk about a job you've never done and make it sound completely convincing.
I'm Anthony, and I'm joined by Felicity. And what makes this podcast different is that everything you're about to hear comes from over 10 years of real IELTS speaking experience, thousands of actual IELTS speaking tests. So when we say the examiner doesn't care whether you've actually done this job, we know that. We've been in the room.
And this is episode 27, the final episode in our Part 2 Long-Term Mastery series, which means by the end of today, you'll have every tool you need for any cue card the examiner puts in front of you.
So let's start with the actual cue card. Felicity, read it out like the examiner would.
Describe a job you think would be interesting to do. You should say what the job is, what skills or qualities you would need to do this job, what would be difficult about the job, and explain why you think it would be interesting.
Okay, 1 minute to prepare. What do listeners need to do in that minute?
3 things. First, pick your job. Don't overthink it. Pick something you find genuinely interesting, even if you know very little about it. Second, run through the 4 bullet points mentally. What is it? What skills it needs? What's difficult? Why it interests you. Third, jot down 2 or 3 key phrases you want to use. Don't write full sentences, just anchor words. Creative challenges, human impact, never routine. That's enough.
Great. And the golden rule for job choice?
Pick something with texture, not accountant or office worker. Those are hard to make interesting. Pick something with physical, human, or creative dimensions. Wildlife photographer, marine biologist, air traffic controller, architect, forensic scientist. These give you so much more to talk about.
Right. And remember, you do not need to have done this job. You do not need to be an expert. You just need to speak about it fluently and in an organized way.
Which brings us to the key language tool for this cue card, conditional language. Because you're describing something you haven't done, you're imagining, and there's beautiful, sophisticated language for imagining.
Let me give you the 5 essential conditional phrases for this topic. These are your building blocks. Phrase 1. I imagine it would involve, for example, I imagine it would involve a lot of problem solving under pressure. That one phrase signals self-awareness and gives you flexibility. You're not claiming expertise, you're speculating intelligently.
Phrase 2, from what I understand. So you can say, from what I understand, the training required is incredibly rigorous. This shows you've thought about it without pretending to know everything. Very natural.
Phrase 3. What appeals to me about this role is, this is your why phrase. What appeals to me about this role is the combination of technical skill and genuine human impact. Strong, personal, developed.
Phrase 4, I suppose I'd need to develop, for the skills section, I suppose I'd need to develop a much stronger grasp of data analysis. This shows honest self-reflection and grammatical range with the conditional.
Phrase 5, it seems like the kind of job where, for extending your answer. It seems like the kind of job where no 2 days are ever quite the same. That's a Band 7 phrase that flows completely naturally.
Beautiful. Now, let's actually do the long turn. Anthony, you've had your 1 minute. I'll be the examiner. Tell me about a job you think would be interesting.
Okay, stepping into candidate mode now. The job I like to talk about is marine biology. Specifically, the kind of field work where you're actually out on the water studying ecosystems and ocean life. I should say up front that I've never studied science beyond school level, so I'm speaking more from genuine fascination than from expertise. But what I imagine it would involve is a combination of laboratory research and extended periods at sea, collecting samples, observing behavior, running experiments in real conditions. From what I understand, it's actually quite physically demanding. Long hours, unpredictable weather, equipment that doesn't always cooperate. In terms of the skills you'd need, I suppose I'd need to develop a much stronger foundation in biology and chemistry, which honestly intimidates me, but also patience, because I imagine a lot of field work involves waiting, observing, watching for something that might not happen. What appeals to me about this role is a sense of genuine discovery. You could be the first person to observe a particular behavior or document a species in a new location. That kind of contribution to human knowledge, it seems extraordinary to me. And it seems like the kind of job where you're never quite done learning. The ocean is so poorly understood, even now. I find that humbling and exciting in equal measure.
Okay, that was genuinely impressive, and I want to break down exactly why. Let's count the conditional phrases used.
I lost count myself.
Dick, I imagine it would involve. Tick, from what I understand. Tick, I suppose I'd need to develop. Tick, what appeals to me. Tick, it seems like the kind of job. 5 out of 5, and every single one sounded natural, not like he was reading from a list.
And notice, I said right at the start, I've never studied science beyond school level. That's not a weakness, that's a sophistication move. It signals self awareness and it gives me permission to speculate freely. Examiners respond really well to that kind of honest framing.
Now, let's talk about timing. That answer was approximately 90 seconds to 2 minutes of speaking, which is exactly the target zone. Not rushing, not padding, developed and controlled.
One more thing on structure. Notice the answer covered all 4 bullet points: what the job is, what skills you'd need, what's difficult, and why it interests you. But it didn't do it robotically. It didn't sound like a list. It flowed.
That's the part 2 secret. The bullet points are your scaffold, not your script. You use them to organize your thinking, but when you speak, you weave between them naturally. What I imagine it would involve naturally leads into skills. What I find difficult to imagine covers challenges. It becomes one connected piece of speech, not 4 separate answers.
Okay, let's do the band score progression. Same cue card, let's hear how different levels actually sound. The job is architect. Ready?
Ready. Band 5 to 6 first.
I want to talk about architect. I think it is interesting job. Architect design buildings. You need to study many years. It is difficult because you need to learn many things. I think I would enjoy this job because I like buildings.
Okay. Grammatical errors. Architect without an article. Interesting job without an article. Very simple vocabulary. No development of ideas. The answer is technically on topic, but it's not going anywhere. That's band 5. Now, band 6 to 7.
The job I'd like to describe is being an architect. I find it interesting because architects design buildings that people will use for decades or even hundreds of years. To do this job, you need to be creative, but also quite technical. There's a lot of mathematics and engineering involved. The challenging part, I think, would be managing clients who have very specific ideas about what they want. And I think it would be interesting because you can actually see your work in the real world.
Better. Some complex structures who have very specific ideas, better vocabulary, technical, engineering, more development, but still fairly surface level, not much personal voice. That's band 6 to 7. Now let's hear band 7 to 8.
I'd like to talk about architecture, specifically the kind of work where you're designing public spaces or cultural buildings rather than just residential homes. What I imagine the job would involve is this constant tension between creative vision and practical constraints: budget, materials, planning regulations. I suppose one of the most challenging aspects would be client management, actually. translating someone's often quite abstract dream into something buildable. What appeals to me about this field is the permanence of the work. An architect's output might outlast them by centuries. That feels like a remarkable legacy to leave.
Oh, that's significantly better. Constant tension between creative vision and practical constraints, that's a sophisticated collocation. Permanence of the work, abstract thinking. Legacy to leave, idiomatic and resonant. The answer develops ideas, not just facts about a job. Band 8 to 8.
And the beautiful irony is, I know very little about forensic architecture. I read about it once, briefly, but that's enough. I can speak about it fluently using conditional language, and that's what earns the marks.
Okay, quick wins time. 3 things to take away today.
Quick win 1. Use conditional language. I imagine it would involve, from what I understand. I suppose I'd need to. These phrases are your permission slip to speak fluently about things you've never done. Master 5 of them and you're set.
Quick win 2. Pick a job with texture. Don't default to teacher or engineer if you can help it. Choose something with human, creative, or intellectual dimensions. Wildlife photographer, forensic scientist, architect, marine biologist. Interesting job choice equals interesting answer almost automatically.
And quick win 3. Frame your imagination honestly. Saying, I've never done this, but what I imagine is not a weakness. It's a sophisticated move. It shows self awareness and it gives you freedom. Examiners have heard thousands of candidates pretend to know things they don't. Honest framing stands out.
If this episode gave you something useful, please subscribe. We put out new episodes every week, all built on real examiner knowledge. And if you have a friend preparing for IELTS, send them this one. The Part 2 cue card is where a lot of candidates drop marks they didn't need to lose.
Next episode, we're back to part 1, and the topic is keeping healthy. Now, this one is interesting because most candidates give the most boringly virtuous answers possible. I exercise regularly and eat vegetables. And I can tell you from 10 years of examining, it doesn't score well. We'll show you why honest, specific, and self aware answers beat perfect ones every time. That's episode 28. Don't miss it.
Until then, keep practicing, keep speaking, and we'll see you next time.